Okay, hi. So this is episode 104, and I decided that because of recent events that I would make a new video and explain many things because I've got quite some formalities to still address in this video, and I don't want to do that in all kinds of separate videos because that will flood your inbox and I don't think they're quite important enough. So yeah, I've got 8,000 subscribers, which is really awesome. Insert very cookie cutter text over here to emphasize how you never expected that. But honestly, I never expected that when I began, but obviously I did expect that lately, but still, even though it's not very too special, it's really amazing, and I am still so happy that this community is even still alive. And we'll do all the fun stuff later at the after party, so I'll see you there. As something else I figured, right, Parkitect. I have, multiple people have asked me if I've seen it, if I've played the game yet, what I intend to do with it, because if you don't know, Parkitect is a really, really amazing game. It's sort of based off Rollercoaster Tycoon, but it's a very new indie developed game. And I'm a really big fan of it. There's just a couple of things. I do have the game. I got it from somebody who got it for free because being subscribed to something or something. But I do intend to get it as well, actually pay for it, give the developers my money because they deserve it, but I'm currently going through some PayPal problems, which do include having no money and it not accepting my bank stuff, and that's a bit of a problem. But one thing that I do have to say is that I'll definitely be making Parkitect videos in the future, but not quite yet. Because right now, since the alpha has just been released of the game, there is quite a bit of a Parkitect hype, and I do not intend to actually take part of that. As soon as I have the game, well, sort of for real that time, I do intend to practice a lot more with it, because so far I don't have too much experience with it, and if I start making videos of it, I really want to also be experienced at the game and not completely fail and suck at the game once I make videos of it. So that's kind of what I intend to do with that. I think that was everything that I really wanted to say. Yeah, you might be wondering what the fuck I am doing with my Pathworks in this roller coaster. That was a bit of a tough story. It's a bit of a long story too, but fuck it, I'll give it anyway. I was in Shadow X-Wraith stream on Twitch, and he used this path, I think. No, it was a completely different story. Asden Wolf, you might know him as Stephen Wolf, actually used this path in one of his parks, and none of us had any idea what he even got this path from, and it looks amazing. So Shadow, he found out what it was from after asking him, and basically I picked up the path, and it was a really big disappointment because the texture, as you can see, it's that one reddish brick texture is really great. The big problem with it, and this wouldn't even necessarily be a problem if it weren't for something else, is the fact that it has only got full tile placements, and it's got only one piece that is just a big old full tile square. And that is not too much of a problem, since usually you can get some sidewalks to cover it, but the other problem with this path is that it covers literally anything and everything in existence. So when I tried to add some sidewalks on the side to add some roundness to this path, it didn't work out because this path covered the sidewalks rather than the other way around. And that is why I am placing all of these planters with this grass and mulch everywhere. The idea here was to get as many planters in as possible and get the curves in the paths in by very, sneaky using of the sort of planters on the sides. That's basically how it works. If it weren't for these overkill of planters on the sides, then I would have completely straight paths. The alternative was trying to find a different texture, but I figured I would just take the challenge and see if I could make some round textures with just this one path texture in the middle of it. And in the end, it did kind of work out. It was even a bit of a positive thing, really. It's something that I do like to do for myself sometimes, to throw in a challenge and see how I can overcome that, because I don't know if this works for anybody else, but I think it is known to work for many people. As soon as you have a challenge, you have to come up with creative ways as overcoming that challenge. And for me, that was this freaking annoying path set. But in the end, these planters that I had to place around the paths really did help and make this roller coaster look a lot better. But you'll see that later as soon as I start adding the flowers and stuff to it. The only real sort of downside, you can see it as a downside, I do kind of like it, is now the fact that, the path covers have so many different textures and so many different fences and things like that all over the place. But it does help also fill up the area, since aside from the roller coaster and the path ornaments and stuff, there isn't really going to be anything in this area. There's no real room for it. It's just gonna be a tiny bit of a show off. On the other side of the roller coaster, I will have some flat rides, and the current planning is to have a dark ride over there. So that's how that's gonna work. Now, what I also wanted to really get in here was, because of these very extensive pathworks that I had many intersections of paths, and I just wanted to mess around with some different sorts of ways of dealing with those intersections. So the first one over here was most likely the largest one in terms of amount of space that it was occupying. So figured I would get a nice little flower bed in the middle of that with a sundial. It's far from the most unique thing you've ever seen. I mean, this is a thing that's been done many times. It's been done to death, basically. But I figured it would be the best fitting thing in this spot. So that's why I kind of wanted to get that in. And here you can see how I kind of tried to get those curves in. The trick was to in a very sneaky way, get these curves in, make them precisely cover the in-game grid so that I could add these path covers and make it look like these path covers actually have curves, whereas these brick path covers definitely don't. And yeah, that's how in the end I did achieve to get a bit of a curvy look here without having to use any curvy path covers. So that is that. But still, I would not recommend doing it in most cases. As you can see, it really does turn into a planter overkill. Though I do have to say, and you probably know this already, it wasn't too much of a problem for me, at least. Not in the sense that it was fun to get all these flowers and different shrubs and bushes in on these planters, because I always just like doing that. So expect to see in the future many times of just flower placements and all that fun stuff. I know if anybody is into that, I am at least, so that's pretty fun. I do also have to add that, although I was of course joking last time that I didn't make a roller coaster in many years, it has actually been quite a while that I did make a roller coaster layout and made supports. I've been working on standalone roller coaster projects for a very long time, and I still am actively working on many projects at the moment. It's just that the last time that I actually started a new project is a very long time ago, and I haven't really made any layout or supports in quite a while, so you might see that I am a tiny bit rusty when it comes to the supporting process and all that. Though I do have to say, it's not something that you really lose, it's not something that you really have to learn as in a skill that it really is. It's just something very standard, it isn't very creative, it basically just takes roller coaster knowledge. Hell, I would even say that somebody with a lot of Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 experience and knowledge, but not a lot of roller coaster experience and knowledge, would actually be worse at supporting roller coasters than somebody who is a complete roller coaster geek, because you really just kind of have to know where supports go and how they should be built, etc. And it's not as much of a creative thing as it is just knowing what is realistic. And I do have to add that I am not a complete coaster nerd, so I have to be corrected sometimes when it comes to supports that I'm not entirely realistic or 100% going for the way that they are done in real life. And yeah, that's a bit of a thing. I also tend to go for the more aesthetic way that, you know, roller coasters can look, which is eventually why I had to turn this, which was previously an Intamin stand-up coaster, into a B&M stand-up coaster, because I went for B&M supports. I just like them a lot more than Intamin supports and how they look, and yeah, that's why I kind of had to change that to a B&M stand-up. I actually got some backlash about the fact that it has a Cobra roll too, but because like in real life there is no stand-up coaster with a Cobra roll, and the basic sort of argument was that it would be uncomfortable. You know, with the bump all of that, stand-up coasters are going to be uncomfortable anyway, and the fact that there is not a B&M coaster in real life that has a Cobra roll doesn't mean that I can't make a B&M in Roller Coaster Tycoon 3 that has a Cobra roll. I mean, you can always try some new things. In any case, this is where the really tough part starts out, because I, even up to this point, have not looked into too much English architecture. Did note a couple of things, like for example the south of Britain, especially around London, uses a lot more beige, brown colours, and the north is where most of the red colours are. And I do intend in this park to go after more of the London style of doing architecture, so more brown colours than red colours, which is both from an aesthetic viewpoint as well as the fact that I have no idea whatsoever where to find custom scenery sets that have those very red brick textures that would fit an English theme. Of course I could make it myself, but that would take effort, and I'm too lazy to do that. I did make a couple of walls, but in hindsight they didn't even work out too well, so I'm still gonna have to see if I've got any sort of use for those walls. And so far it is over here a combination of Station Jim's Country Inn, which I don't think is made for an English theme, but it does have very similar textures when it comes to the bricks and the roof, and especially the very rustic look on it is really amazing. And if you haven't noticed yet, this building is going to be a mock Tudor building. I'm quite a big fan of that. Gonna have to see what sort of balance I want to have in the park between Victorian style buildings and mock Tudor buildings. Maybe some Edwardian architecture in there somewhere. But mock Tudor is basically very easy because it's in essence very similar to Alpine. It does have different patterns, and Tudor is most usually like completely black when it comes to the beams, whereas Alpine is usually still brown. But other than that, it's a similar idea. You take Alpine Village and you spam the walls and the beams. At least that was the sort of idea that I went into this building with. So, I don't know, in hindsight, it's an alright building. Definitely, I'm quite happy about it since it is the first building that I tried in this theme. Even though I would like to usually mess around with a theme before I really build it in my park, so coasters, I haven't done that with the English theme. I just decided, bump it, I'm gonna see whatever I can create over here. If it's any good, then I'll leave it there, and if it's really bad, then whatever, nothing is really lost over there, I can always just remove it. So that's the sort of idea that I went into this building with, and in the end, I do think that it did work out. I mean, I do have English people, like, on Skype and in the stream and stuff, and they weren't too unhappy about this building, so I figure it's alright. The one big problem, though, that I did run into is the fact that many Tudor buildings do have patterns that you cannot find in any wooden beam set in Rollercoaster Tycoon 3 whatsoever. So, yeah, the patterns might not be entirely realistic, they are just improvised things basically using Alpine Village, so that could be a tiny bit better. Might actually want to make some things for that as well, because I actually do still have permission from Shy Guy to use the textures, so that would be amazing, but then I would have to get off my lazy butt and actually do some stuff about that. One very important thing though is that I want to focus on the chimneys as well. I don't know, for me at least, one thing that I always recognize when it comes to English architecture is their very signature chimneys. Very large, very much out there, and very, well, it is a very big part of how it's incorporated into the building, whereas other cultures, like, especially here in Holland, chimneys are kind of tucked away in a building, not really playing any major role, people just want to not see them, but in England they're almost used as ornaments, and that is something that I do want to add in my buildings as well. And other than that, it's just going to be sort of copying buildings, but not really copying buildings. Kind of taking a lot of inspiration from pictures that I do see. Another problem with this theme, which you might kind of recognize from the Dutch area, is that there is not a lot of custom scenery that is geared towards English buildings, which still kind of surprises me. I mean, a very large part, I think it's the second largest group within the communities from England, or Britain, or the United Kingdom, whatever you will, the British Isles. So, yeah, it's a bit of a bummer that there isn't really too much custom scenery when it comes to that entire theme. So, yeah, it's going to be quite tough to actually get some really good realistic stuff going. Especially with how realistic I made the Dutch area. I really want to watch out. I've got many recommendations still from people which are really awesome about what I can change in the Dutch area to make it more realistic, but I actually do want to keep the Dutch area as it is right now, maybe even make it less realistic, because I'm going for a certain level of realism and closeness to reality with the park overall, and it would be very weird if, like, all the themes are somewhat realistic, recognizable, but do still have a lot of the theme park freedomness to it that, you know, the creator of a theme park kind of takes his liberty to add some changes to the theme or leave out some things. And it would be very weird if every area had that, except for the Dutch area, which would then be completely 100% recognizable from real life. So that's why I do want to leave the Dutch area a tiny bit less 100% like the real Holland is. So yeah, that's also, I suppose, a bit of a marker that not every area in this entire park is going to be completely realistic. I do want to follow basic rules of what they look like, and of course I want the areas to be recognizable, but it's not going to be 100% exact copies like it. Plus, there's going to be a lot of architectural stereotyping. For example, I want in this area, in the British area, I do want to have a tower like the Westminster. Wait, the Elizabeth Tower and the what's that city called again? A city that nobody cares about. I don't know anymore. Manchester. There we go. The Manchester Town Hall. I want to get that sort of tower in here somewhere too. But I am running out of time, so thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next episode.